Hi, this is just a quick video about something that's been happening to me, or that actually used to happen to me more in the past, but still happens from time to time. And it has to do with clients. It basically entails a client or a prospective client or agency or someone getting in touch with me and asking for a price quote, and I give a price quote, and we go back and forth. And basically, somewhere in the correspondence back and forth, I say something like, well, I'll work on the translation and then I'll review my own work and then make sure the format and everything is how you want it, and then I'll send it off to you. And at some point, they might say, okay, your price is a bit too high for us. How about if you don't review your own work and look over it and make sure it's all nice and everything, but you just translate it quickly and send it off without a review? And I remember the first time that this happened, or first times I should say that this happened. And I remember pondering and wondering if I should do it, if I shouldn't, et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately, I decided not to accept that, basically. And actually, I'm really happy now that I made that choice. And so I'm going to share the reasons why. I really think it's dangerous for you to lower your price and then send out to the agency or to the client or whomever a substandard document or substandard work of yours. And there are a couple reasons for this. First of all, they will receive whatever you send them and send it off to the end client, to whoever needs it. And at that point, well, first of all, it means the agency or the middle person, whoever you're dealing with, accepts substandard jobs and sends out substandard jobs. And why do I have such a problem saying substandard? And that isn't a good sign for an agency you're dealing with, right? So automatically that should be a red flag. But second of all, it means that something under your name and that you've worked on is out there in cyberspace, and it is substandard. Now, you can send all the emails to this agency or client and say, oh, I didn't work on it, this isn't 100%, I did this for a cheaper price, et cetera, but it doesn't matter. First of all, because the end client, or whoever received it last, or whoever looks at it even after that, will see a substandard job, and then if they find out who the translator was, well, that's it, your reputation's gone. Second of all, the turnover in translation agencies is so high that whoever you deal with today might not be the same person you deal with in 3 or 6 months' time or in a year or whatever. And so someone else might suddenly have to do language in your language combination, come across your name, look at something you did, and see that it's substandard. Or they'll forward it to another translation agency where they have a friend working and say, hey, we had someone work in this language combination before. How does this look? And then it'll be substandard and then there too. And because of all the turnover, this is actually quite likely to happen. Everyone keeps a documentation of their past translations and they know who worked on what, and so there you go. But they don't know necessarily that you were doing it substandard because you weren't getting paid that much. Also, translation agencies do contact other agencies, and every now and then they pay each other a commission to find a good translator or this and the other. So there is a lot of interaction. Plus, along with the turnover, it means that someone from one agency moves to another, and so anything you send out there basically is out there. And you own whatever you work on while you're working on it, but as soon as you send it out there, basically whoever has it owns it, and they can do whatever they want. They can forward it to other people, and they can basically point out your mistakes, and it can be bad, even if you specified in your emails that you weren't reviewing your own work. So in essence, look, I think the most likely scenario if you do something like that is that you won't have any repercussions and it won't come back to haunt you. On the other hand, you never really know, and it could come back to haunt you in a couple of years' time or at some point in the future. And so you really never know, and it's there in the back of your mind, and it could bother you. Of course, the worst case scenario could be that it becomes, gets forwarded around or becomes a meme or something like that. And in fact, I remember, and well, now I'm dating myself because I remember reading this in the newspaper before they had memes, but I remember when I was young, there was a movie called Look Who's Talking back in the 80s, and it got translated initially as Guarda chi parla instead of Senti chi parla, which is a literal translation, but it's not correct in Italian. And then I think the slogan or something also got translated incorrectly. In essence, it was a bad translation, and they had a small article in our local paper about it. And I remember even at the time thinking, this is before I got into translation or anything, feeling bad for the translator, basically, thinking, well, they really screwed this one up. And and nowadays it's so much easier. You find websites and Facebook pages dedicated to bad translations. So you don't want your work to be on one of those websites, definitely. But also you just don't want it to be out there. As they said in The Social Network, I think, in that movie, And what did they say? Well, something like the internet isn't written in pencil, it's written in ink, or something like that. But it's true. Once it's out there, and you can't do anything about it because it's out there. So anyway, that's pretty much all I had to say. I really highly recommend that if you do send out a piece of work that you rely on to make money, that it should be the best it can be, and you should not send out substandard pieces of work for a cheaper price for any reason. So I don't know, maybe you disagree. If you do, feel free to let me know in the comments and your reasoning why, because I'd be curious to see why. And feel free to subscribe for more tips, tricks, advice, and other rants, I guess, having to do with translation and freelance translation in general. And I'll see you in the next video. Okay.